So let's start with Tom Brady. Third down, fourth down, confusion. He's not telling the truth. Who cares? That's not why they lost. They lost because of 11 penalties and bad pass protection. The bottom line, you do anything long enough. You're married for 30 years, you're going to have more fights. You drive the same car for 20 years, you're going to have more flat tires. You do anything forever. And he's been playing quarterback forever. You're going to have a brain fart. Doesn't happen in Super Bowls. Doesn't happen in conference championships. Doesn't happen in big division rival games. It happened on a short week Thursday night. He forgot what down it was. This game wasn't about that play. This was about the Bears defense is built in that moment to stop. You can beat the Bears defense early, but in that moment, you're not beating the Bears defense. They only allow 57% completion percentage, the Bears defense, best in the NFL. They have a great pass rush. That's an ordinary Buccaneer offensive line, and they've allowed 4 touchdown passes in 5 games. No quarterbacks thrown for more than 1. In that moment, by the time the game got to that, Tampa Bay wasn't winning. They were not going to take the ball 55 yards down the field in a minute, 5 seconds, and get a field goal. They weren't. They didn't have O.J. Howard, their best tight end talent. They didn't have Chris Godwin, their second best wide receiver talent. They didn't have Leonard Fournette out of the backfield swing pass. Tampa Bay could have won the game, and I thought they would by a field goal. But by the time it got to that, it didn't matter about the time. Short week, on the road, Bears humiliated, and that defense is built for that moment. Here's the troubling thing if you're Tampa. Because most of us picked Tampa, myself included, to be a wild card team and go 9-7. All right, so you got to lose 7 games. This is their second. And if you look at the way their schedule works out, they look like a 6 or 7 loss team. So short week, on the road, well-coached Bears. By the time that game got to the end, go 50 yards in a minute 5 against that defense, and they're getting a scary pass rush. That's not a place where Tampa Bay right now is built to win without their second best receiver, their best tight end, and their best running back. Here's what worries me again. The 2 things that I wondered about Tom this year. Joy is my witness. Number 1, Tom's old. This offensive line ain't great. Left tackle opted out. Is this offensive line good enough to win a Super Bowl? Last night did not look good enough. Did not look good enough. The left tackle who opted out, they missed him a lot. The second thing I talked about, remember I talked about culture. I kept saying, Bruce Arians, cocktails at 5, little loosey-goosey, the franchise has never buttoned up. Last night they had 11 penalties. They had 11 penalties for over 100 yards. So the 2 things I worried about last night, it looked like old Tampa. It looked like Jameis Tampa without the pick 6. It was like a bunch of penalties, bad protection. Tom Brady's getting ticked off. Don't worry about the timeout, okay? If you do anything for a long time, drive a car, get married, be in a business, you're going to have bad weeks, bad days, and a brain fart. That just happens. As long as it doesn't happen in Super Bowls, conference championships, the biggest games of the year, late in the season in December, I'm good with it. That stuff happens. But what can't happen, and that what reared its head last night, is 11 penalties. That defines Tampa Bay my entire life. 11 penalties. Bad pass protection with a bunch of stars. But this is a very forgivable loss, especially when it got down to the point where you're asking Tom, go 55 yards in a minute. That's not where they're at right now against that defense. Now, when Chris Godwin's back with Mike Evans and Leonard Fournette's back, the truth is you wouldn't be in that situation. You would have a 7 to 10 point lead. Tampa was better early. Chicago was better late. They got to clean up some of that stuff because it looked frighteningly, it resembled old Tampa. Penalties and bad pass protection. Do a better job, Tampa. Tom forgot what down it was. Not the end of the world in a Thursday night game. 11 penalties? You're not winning games like that. You're not winning games with 11 penalties in this league. And by the way, bad pass protection, 11 penalties, never happened in New England. So it's probably really frustrating for Brady and something he's thought about and then realized last night. All right, let's keep it real. When Dak Prescott entered the NFL, it was not real. It was like Fantasy Island. The best offensive line, the best young running back. His head coach had been an NFL quarterback. Low expectations. 2-3 teams in the division are rebuilding. This morning we find out Tyron Smith, left tackle, is now out for the year. Oh, wait, their right tackle's out for the year. Oh, wait, their center, the Hall of Famer, retired. He's out forever. Dak Prescott finally is living the real. This is life. Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold. This is the way it works. Now he's got a bad offensive line. And he's got an outdated coach. And his defense stinks. It didn't stink his first couple years in the NFL. You know, his first year, they were top 5 in points allowed. Now the defense stinks. The defensive coordinator stinks. The locker room's not good. No Hall of Fame Jason Witten there. They got a bunch of good receivers, but this is the real life in the NFL. Okay, Russell Wilson has been in this league for 9 years. He has yet to have a great offensive line. Aaron Rodgers has been in this league for 16 years, played 13. He's had 1 top 5 defense. Deshaun Watson is running for his life. 1 o'clock on Sunday. Put it down. And by the way, Carson Wentz is throwing to scout team guys for the 3rd year in a row. That's the reality of the NFL. It is not Dak's first couple of years. No expectations, best offensive line. Zeke is the best running back. Jason Garrett is a non-screaming mentor who played in the league, and the defense was good. And the division was, really not good. And no, that's not the way it works. The defense is awful. The offensive line now is a patchwork mess. The defense is awful. And now the question is, can Dak take an outdated head coach, a bad defensive coordinator, and win games? Yes, just not against really, really good teams. I mean, listen, I've never, ever resented kids who grow up with money. I've never resented it. You know, some people do, some people don't. I think most of us don't care, right? Most of us, we got our lives. But there are people that resent the trust fund kid. I don't. But as I've said many times on this show, I acknowledge I would have loved to have been a trust fund kid. I would have loved to not drive a 1966 Buick in high school, which broke down regularly. I would have loved to have a new BMW. I would have loved to have had money. I would have loved to have an easier life. I would have loved to intern at a station, then they hire me, maybe a network. I would have loved not having 14 years in the minors. But I don't resent it at all. I had a good time. But Dak was a little bit of a trust fund kid in the NFL. O-line, Zeke, the quarterback, the defense, the rebuilding. There's a lot of good stuff. Now, it's not the worst situation in the world now, but what he's living is the Joe Burrow life and the Sam Darnold life and the injury life and the Carson Wentz life and the John Watson life. And I've said this about Patrick Mahomes. Bruh, you don't get Andy Reid. You don't get Travis Kelce, Mitchell Schwartz, Cheetah. You don't get the Hunt family. That's not the way it works. Your first team in the NFL, then you get Alex Smith. So this is, Dak had a really safe and soft landing in the NFL, and now he's dealing with a bunch of junk and a bunch of stuff that everybody has to. And I think he's hardworking enough, durable enough, tough enough. He's just kind of guy that just gets through it all. He's talented enough. They're going to win some games this year, but beating good teams, no left tackles, backup center. I mean, that's what Russell can overcome. That's what Aaron can overcome. That's what Mahomes can overcome. But I don't think that's what Dak can overcome. I never resented him. Nobody resents Magic for inheriting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and a great coach and a great front office. But it was a little easier for Magic early than it was for Michael Jordan early or LeBron early. We can at least acknowledge that, right? Don't have to resent it, but we have to acknowledge it. And now Dak's living the real life of the NFL quarterbacks. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.